Okay, so let's talk about planets. Later on in this video, I realised that in my last video about ships and the fleets, I didn't talk about the name generator, so I'm going to do that at the end of this one when I talk about the planet name generator as well. But for right now, I'll just show you what we've got set up here. Oh, I think I did something wrong there. No, I'm okay. So, we've got a little test event here that's waiting for the key press of C from the GM screen. And it's essentially just making sure that the create planet variable isn't set, as in we're not creating a planet, and then it's setting it to 0 in this case, which is completely random. Just like the ship generator, if you don't put in a little code there and you put in 0 instead, it will give you a completely random outcome. So let's see what that looks like to us. Here we go. C. Boom. Alright, so here we have a kind of strange looking planet with nebula rings, you know, like gas rings, and it looks pretty cool. I'll go to the main screen on here so you can see it a little smoother. You can see it's rotating very slightly, very slowly, and the attributes of the planet that get spawned, if you don't define them obviously, get randomized, and those attributes are the tilt of the planet, the size of the planet, or you know, the scale of the planet essentially, the rotation rate of the planet, what kind of planet it is, like what texture it has, and also the like whether it has rings or not, and various parts of that process are scaled depending on the size of the planet itself. So the rings will be more likely to be larger if the planet itself is larger. So we have one planet, let's make another one. Press C again. Oh, another nebula planet. I do like the nebula planets, very, very fun to have a look at. So we'll step back because this one was pretty big, and you need to be within 7,500 units of it. So you can see right now I can't see either of them. As soon as I get to about here, I'll be able to see. And because this one is very big, it suffers from an issue. That you're probably wondering why these planets are kind of smaller than you might expect, and it's because any bigger and they end up like suffering more from this problem, that huge pop in there. Okay, and so you're left with a conundrum. Do you make planets gigantic to the point where like their radius is like 6,000 units or more, and then have it that they pop in immediately as you're coming up to them, or do you make them a little bit smaller but bigger than your ship and believable-ish in size so that that illusion isn't broken? Because, like I said, if you have a planet that's got a 6,000 unit radius, and you have to be within 7,500 units in order to see an object, you have to be within 7,500 units of the center of an object, then it means that you're just, you know, you're flying, and then suddenly, big wall of planet in your face, and it just it's bollocks. So I thought scale-wise, an upper limit would help, and the upper limit still sees things pop in a little bit, but you know, it's not something I can really deal with without getting a hand on the you know, the root code of the engine. And if I could do that, I wouldn't have built all this in a mission, rather than, you know, being part of the actual game. So that's one other planet. Let's make another random planet over here, Quanos. So you can see they get different names, and you can add names to that random name generator if you so desire. Up to you entirely. And you can see that one's got a slightly different texture. This one is the iron planet texture. Oh, a little bit different, and you can see it's not really rotating at all. It's very, very slightly, I think. But anyway, and that one is a bare planet, so there's no rings or anything around it. So that's the effect of the random. You know, if you set it to random, it'll randomize everything. Let's have a look at some very specific planets here. So we've got the cheat sheet, as always. We've got a big block of stuff which you can have a look at. If you want to put a very specific planet in, there's between 1 and 13 will get you one of these types of planets. We've got an arid planet, a blue gas giant, a red gas giant, an Earth-like planet. To be honest with you, that one's not so good as Earth. And the Earth texture is actually a little big right now, but we have a barren rock planet, a desert planet, Hoth essentially, and I know Ice Planet and Hoth seem like they shouldn't, you know, be together, but they look different, so I thought I'd put them in. An iron planet, the actual moon texture, a strange planet, which I think is the first one that spawned up, and a rock planet. Obviously, these are very easy to get if you like very quickly go onto sorry guys, I'll do that. If you very quickly go onto an image search of any kind and just type in something like planet planet texture. I don't know. Let's see if this works. There we go. So type in planet texture. You can add more textures that are in this format, so just flat textures essentially, because the way the planet is unwrapped, it takes them very nicely from this kind of flat profile. And I'll show you where to add them if you do want to add them later on. So anyway, close that. Continuing. And so here we have the textures that I've currently got in. We've got a bunch of names as well that you can define, but not in the regular code, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. And we have planet types, so either planet, moon. So planet gives you a certain range of scales. Moon gives you a smaller range of scales, and then with rings, this one should just be planet with rings, because I realised that the scale for the with rings is. The scale for the with rings is planet sized. So, cool. Let's take the planet spawner, which is in other environments. So you press O, and it pops up this menu here, and you've got loads of stuff in it. But planet's what we're looking for, so 3 for planet. And then we've got a bunch of things that are already there. We have random, like the one we've just been using, and then we have manual spawn, so 7. And you can see it says here, input planet code, texture 1 to 13, type 1 to 3. So I'm going to go for, and don't worry if it disappears, it still is going to work. I'm going to go for a blue gas giant because it looks awesome. Blue gas giant, I'm going to make it with rings because I like gas rings, it's fun. So, was blue gas giant 2? I think it was 2, and then 3, and then press space, and it'll pop in a blue gas giant called Danis apparently. And you can see it's got gaseous rings, and it's itself is a blue gas giant, and it looks kind of cool. I like it. Oh Jesus! Oh, another thing that it randomizes is the height in the plane that it spawns in, so they're not all flat on the plane, which is kind of cool. It just gives a little bit more depth again. But this one's rotating. You can see it's slightly off axis. Yeah, cool. All right. So you can use a random planet spawner, which is in that menu. So random planet spawner, we've got a manual planet spawner where you can input codes. Let's just input one more. Let's go for 11. I think I pressed 11 there. And then let's go for 2. So it should be fairly small. Let's have a look. Oh, P, there we go. And let's turn. See if we can't see it. We cannot see it. We are too far away. Move. There it is. Tiny. Fucking tiny. Right. So we have a moon, and quite fittingly it shows a moon texture, which is lovely. And so you could have these two if you were close enough to both of them. It would give a very nice look, you know, moon and planet. Oh, it's just too far apart. Oh well. So planet spawn. Let's talk about the code now. So I need to find this. So double click. Go crazy and find, there it is, planet spawn code. So here we go. This planet spawn code is very similar to the ship spawn code at the very beginning, in that it has this check to see whether, obviously, create planet has got anything set to it. It sends it off to the code parser, and then this is waiting for the return from the code parser, and depending on the input, it kind of sets various things. So you could, if you wanted to, use that code input, as you can see from here. You could, if you wanted to, type in just the planet type. So if I just wanted to, oh, that's the wrong thing to open. If I just wanted a gas ring planet that was random, I could once again open up that O3 for planet, and then press manual spawn, and then I would just press 3 for gas ring, and it'll give me a random texture with a gas ring planet. So you don't have to set the texture, which is kind of nice. And I suppose I didn't talk about one other way of doing this, which is probably going to be the most useful way for you guys, and it is to specify absolutely everything about the planet. So here we have a block of code, which can be sort of copy and pasted. So let's give you an example of this, going back up to where I was. Here, if we just go into this area here and copy and paste this in. So you can see we have a bunch of things we can specify. Planet name number, first of all. What do we want to name it? What hasn't been used yet? because we can't name a planet the same thing twice. So, go. Let's name it. That's not being used, is it? Nope. Okay. Let's name it Glia. So number 4. Let's make planet name number 4. And of course, you could add more planet names to the name generator. Planet visual. What texture do we want to give it? Let's give it the actual Earth texture. 6. There we go. Planet type. Let's make it just a plain planet. So number 1. Planet scale. So between 1 and 16. After that, it gets, you know, if it's 17, it starts to have that pop-in issue. So let's make it 8. Let's make it right in the middle. 8. I'll just make it 0.0 for whatever. Planet pitch. Now, obviously, this is how much it's off axis. 5 being the extremes and negative 5 being the other extreme. Let's just make it 2. And then planet spin. Now, of course, you could go out with the scale for this, so you could make the planet spin like crazy by putting 100 there, but it would look silly. So I'm just going to leave it at 15. Spin quite fast, perhaps too fast, but still, stylistically, you could maybe use that. I remember the original Star Trek having quite fast spinning planets for some reason. And then planet ring radius. If you wanted to specify that, if you actually had a planet with rings, you could, but usually you can just sort of leave that and it'll generate the size of the planet rings based on the scale of the actual planet. But obviously I want to give the option there so that anybody could define every aspect of the planet that they wanted. And now here we can set a position if we really want to, or if we omit this entirely, then what it does is it takes the position of the GM cursor using another utility I've built and uses that instead. So after we set all this, instead of putting any sort of code in which would define any details, I just want to set it off, which would be to turn it to 0. That way it ignores the input and just uses all these. So now we're going to get an Earth planet, which is kind of medium sized, a little bit off axis and spins at a rate of, I don't know what the rate would actually be, but you know, spins at a decent rate. So let's see what that looks like. I need to restart the sim obviously because I've just changed the mission code. But end the game, start the game. And here we go, coming in. Alright, so now my C key is going to make the same planet over and over again with the right name first of all. So it's going to be Glia first. And I'll go to it so you can see it. Alright, so there we have an Earth-like planet. Well, it is actually Earth. The texture is Earth. The clouds were superimposed on top of that texture, so it kind of looks a bit strange from the cloud's perspective, but that's the Earth texture. It's very high res. It really shouldn't be quite so high for the game, but it's cool. And if I make another one, it'll be called something different because Glia can't be used twice. So you saw it there. It had its name as P for a while, and then it changed to Ethia. So there's the same planet, and then well, what do you expect? I suppose everything is set. Kelpec. Another one. I just a little bit further away from it, obviously. So we have the same planet spawning over and over and over again. And so this would be very useful when you're trying to obviously define a system of some kind. You want the same planet in it all the time. And that's exactly what I've done with my system. So if I want the same planet, I just put a block like this as one of the generating events. Cool. So that's how you would, that's the multiple ways you can spawn planets or use the planet spawner. Now let's talk about the code like I was about to a moment ago. So we've got the original parsing part that checks the actual input you've given it and then sets any variables that you're setting with that code. And after that, it goes through all these checks. So if the planet visual is not set, then it sets a planet visual. If the planet type is not set, then it sets a planet type random. It does the same for pitch. And then the y coordinate, if not defined, kind of up or down here. Again, this would be a very useful one to define actually. If you want to make, no, it would be fine. Never mind. So yeah, it defines a planet y coordinate, and then it defines the x and z. And the way it does this is if the planet x is not defined, it's at 0, which is you're never going to make a planet at 0, 0, 0. So. If it's a 0, then it's taken as undefined, and it makes sure that the cursor update is not being used, and so it sets the cursor update off. And what that does is a utility that makes a small object at the position of the cursor. It then scans the entire sector to find that object, and then it narrows down its position and stores it in these variables, x, y, and z. And right now I'm using just x and z, obviously, to set the planet x and planet z position. And then I reset the sector scan. And so there we have, it's set the position nicely. We set the planet scale between 4 and 16 if it's a planet, or if it's a moon. So you can see planet type here, number 2, that's a moon. Everything else but 2, 4 to 16. If it's a moon, it's 2 to 6. So there's a chance that a planet might be smaller than a moon. I understand that's kind of weird, but I wanted, you know, some moons are big, some moons are small. And you could obviously change this. You could come in here and change that if you didn't like the way that worked. And then push radius. The push radius is just a little bit of a... this took a bit of trial and error, of course, but 110 times the planet scale seems to give a good push radius. And I didn't actually show this, but yeah, you can't bump into the planets, so you can't crash into the planets. You know, they have a push radius, which is, it kind of makes sense. Makes it feel like there's a bit of an atmosphere. For my liking, I think it's a little close, but I haven't gotten around to changing it. And really, all I have to do is change that one thing. So maybe I should just give it an extra 5 or something. But you can see there it's pushing me away, and I'm not at the surface. That is a little close. Maybe I should make it like 115 or something. I might do that. Anyway, stop the ship. I want to get off. Okay. Moving on, we have planet spin that gets randomized. We have the radius, the ring radius, which is being set based on the push radius, and it is between the actual push radius itself and the push radius times 4. So it's either going to be centered on the surface of the planet, or just past the surface of the planet, or, you know, up to 4 times out there. And then the the planet ring range is just, you know, the range for randomizing the position of each of the entities which makes up the ring. And then we collect everything. So this is just making sure everything is set. Once everything is set, then we go to creating a planet. We go to the next step. We reset the planet. We set the planet spawn off. We reset the code parser, and we set creating a planet to 0. And at this point, spawn planet. Here we have all the different textures. So for the arid planet, it's just, you know, create an object with using that model and this texture. And it keeps going down, uses the same model, just a different texture each time, obviously, to give us these different things. So if you wanted to add planets, you could just copy and paste this block and then add a new texture into the file structure and reference it here. And then obviously change the number to 14 and make sure it's 1 to 14 rather than 1 to 13 in the random. And then, as you can see here, we got an unmodded planet, and all this does is use the asteroid texture, the asteroid model, and a monster texture to give us a planet, and it scales it a little bit differently because the size of the actual model is differently scaled. So after that, you can see that it's created as PLNT. If exists PLNT, and we're checking the planet type here, and it's not a moon, then we want to call it planet. If it is a moon, then we call it moon. And the reason for this is I intended to have differentiations between a planet being finished up scale-wise and a few different things, and a moon being finished up. But it never happened, but the events are still there. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't take them out, just in case the game itself ever changed. I could make a distinction between moons and planets when you scan them, say. And then here's the unmodded ones. You can see the math is slightly different to try and get the planet's push radius right. And then for the nebula ring, so if planet type is 3, then it's got a nebula ring, obviously. So we create nebulas in a ring, given the planet ring radius and the planet ring range. And that is us almost completed creating this, because we still have this object PLNT, and it gets its name changed. So we still have this object either moon or planet, which gets its name changed to P. And when its name gets changed to P, this is the name generator. So we have a planet name generator, and this works much the same as the random name generator. It just waits for an object of a specific name to be there, so P in this instance, and for the random name generator it is space. And then once that's there, it just moves the generate planet name onto step 1. And on step 1 there, it's if planet name number is not equal to something that's set, equals -1, i.e. you didn't define it previously, then it takes a random between 0 and 11. And then these ones are just for the reset. I'll go over them in a second. So once we have a planet name number, we check whether that planet name has been used. So if that planet name does not exist, if that object doesn't exist, then set P, the planet, to that name, and then we're good. If Zorilya exists and we're trying to make a planet with the name Zorilya, then what happens is this can't trigger ever, and we go into the reset. So every 6th tick state, and if you've seen the episode on the clock, you'll understand what this means. But essentially, this is just a moment in time, continuously happening. So every time that ticks on, and reset planet name is not happening, then, and we're also generating a planet name. So essentially, we're at a point where we're trying to give it a planet name, but it's not happening. Then we set the reset planet name to 1, and then when we reset planet name to 1, we're waiting for a 6th tick state to go off, and then we set it to 2, and then we wait for it to go back on again, at which point we set planet name number to -1. And what this essentially does is just make sure that there is at least one, well, it's actually a quarter, but at least one whole 6th tick state happens before we decide, okay, this is not working, let's try again. And this is also the same thing that allows us, or actually no, this is the event that allows us to recognize when something has been renamed. So if the renaming of P is successful, then P no longer exists, yet the generate planet name will be more than 0. So then we reset everything. And spawn planet reset sets all these things back to their default values. And that's the end of the loop for that. So that's the planet name generator. Let's talk a little about the random name generator. This could take a while to find. Oh no, get random name. No, actually, that's going to take a while to find. Random name gen. See if that does anything. Sure. Let's do that instead. Yeah, there we go. All right, random name generator. Here we are. So you can see it is waiting for an object called space. And if there is an object that equals the name space and we're not generating a random number, then we choose a random letter from 1 to 5. So it's not A to Z, sorry, it's A to E, because A to E is 500 names already. And A to Z is obviously going to be a silly amount of names. 2,600 names. No reason for that at all. So 500 names I thought would be fine. Especially for performance purposes. And then we get a random number 1 and random number 2. And so it's very simple. If you are random letter is 1 or A, and then number 1 is 0 and number 2 is 0, then the name is A00, goddammit, and set that name to A00. Continuing down the same logic, if the second number was 2, for instance, then it'd be A02, and so on and so forth for 500 goddamn events to give us a random name generator. And the same sort of thing happens if that name already exists, then there's an event string which checks to see whether we're in a state where we're trying to set a name and we have been there for a while, or a 1/6 or a quarter in fact, and then it resets it so we pick a new name. Yeah, this is a very simple and overcomplicated, because of the parser, an overcomplicated way of making a random name generator. But it was necessary because it's, you can't have ships that are named the same thing. Otherwise, players can't differentiate between them and give each other accurate information. So it makes sense that the ship's computer would give a designation that was random. And you may be asking yourself, why did you do this? Why was this even necessary? The game has a random name generator in it, because every time you spawn a ship, a random name comes onto it. And yes, you're absolutely right. But this is one of those things that is not accessible by the modding community. It is the random name is assigned at the point when the object is created, and so it's kind of irritating, because if we had access to it, I could just finish all the stuff I need to do with the ship spawn and the fleet spawn, and then pass it back to that random name generator. But because there's no access, I had to build another one. So anyway, that's that. You know, we've covered everything I needed to cover about planets and their name generator. So see you in the next video, which I think is on wormholes and things. Bye.